They would stop the car and say hi to the driver and passengers, and then ask them to donate money for ammunition costs.
Some people become unwilling to donate, but we have to give in to those with weapons.
Sagaing region has been a hotbed of resistance to the 2021 military coup. Dozens of different People's Defence Forces, or PDFs, have set up checkpoints on major routes they control. But this is beginning to cause friction with locals trying to travel around the region. Hello and welcome to Doh Athan, a weekly podcast about human rights stories from Myanmar. It's brought to you by Fondation Hirondelle. This episode is produced by a Doh Athan journalist. Names and voices may have been changed to protect contributors.
They would stop the car and say hi to the driver and passengers, and then ask them to donate money for ammunition costs. There are so many groups, the car gets stopped every now and then, from one village to another.
Doh Athan is a driver who takes passengers between Yangon and Shuibo in Sagaing region on a daily basis. Some people go the whole way, others just travel a section of the route. But inevitably these days when they get to Sagaing region, everything slows down because there are so many road checkpoints set up by different resistance groups. Doh Athan says a short trip through that area, which used to take 40 minutes, say, now takes 2 hours. The worst part of the route is between the towns of Sagaing and Shuibo. There are said to be more than 10 local defence forces in this area, and people are being asked for donations at checkpoints. Doh Athan says many of his passengers pay what they can afford, perhaps around 500 or 1,000 kyat.
Both the drivers and the passengers get annoyed. We get stopped frequently and it slows down the journey. Since there are many groups asking for donations, people get sick of it.
The Sagaing Defence Force acknowledges this practice. Spokesman Gopal Si says they don't get enough support from the regional administration under the National Unity Government, or NUG. So his group needs to raise money to fund its mission. Gopal Si says the different resistance groups have agreed on a rota so that each force sets up a checkpoint only once a week. And he insists they never coerce anyone. However, resistance forces are also making money at the checkpoints by taxing goods passing through. Gosan is a shopkeeper from Wetlet Township in Shuibo district. He says at resistance checkpoints there are fixed taxes set by the NUG. For example, they collect 10,000 kyat for every fuel drum and the same amount for a bottle of liquor. Some soldiers give discounts, apparently, depending on the circumstances. Gosan says these groups can also behave badly during these goods inspections, and people are afraid to challenge them. He travels regularly to Sagaing to buy goods he can sell in his shop.
Sometimes they poke the goods with knives, the soft drink cans get punctured, the rice sacks and rain guards get torn. When such things happen, we get really annoyed, but they are armed and we dare not talk back. This doesn't happen just once, twice, or 3 times. They overstep the mark while inspecting for things. They never admit that they are wrong.
In fact, local defence forces should not be collecting taxes on the roads at all, according to a ruling by the Sagaing Public Administration under the NUG. Previous complaints prompted them to issue a statement in March this year, stating that only township-level officials from the relevant NUG department could collect taxes. Any armed group found collecting money on the streets would be disbanded. But it seems that some of the local resistance forces are ignoring this ruling and some groups may not be under the command of the NUG. Doh Athan contacted NUG officials to ask them why the problem persists, but they have not replied. But locals say the behaviour of soldiers from the so-called State Administration Council, or SAC, is much worse. Gaungmon has to go through the Sagaing Bridge checkpoint regularly for his job. He says SAC soldiers not only extort money from him, but harass him because he lives with HIV and carries medication for it. Gaungmon says the SAC soldiers demand money for a variety of reasons, for the transportation of any kind of goods, or when passengers don't have their travel passes or have out-of-date NRCs, for example, and there's no way of negotiating with them. Go Mount-U drives passengers and carries goods along the Sagaing route. He also dreads going through the Sagaing Bridge checkpoint. And he says wherever there are soldiers with weapons at checkpoints, people are afraid. Sagaing region has been one of the worst affected by the conflict which spread after the military coup in February 2021. Across Myanmar, the UN estimates around 2.7 million people have been displaced since the coup, and almost half of those are in Sagaing region alone. Latest figures from ISP Myanmar show that Sagaing accounts for over 2/3 of more than 91,000 houses and buildings destroyed in conflict since the coup. And like people elsewhere in the country, Sagaing residents are also struggling due to the economic downturn and the shortage of job opportunities. So the civilians of this region can ill afford all these donations, taxes and incidents of extortion. Go Bauk-si of the Zedong Defence Force conceded to Doh Athan that they, and others like them, are done for if the public hates them. Shopkeeper Go San suggests things may be heading that way.
Those people imposing taxes think no one else is fighting as much as they are. But some people feel they are not doing enough, and they only see them collecting on the streets. Some people become unwilling to donate, but we have to give in to those with weapons.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Doh Athan. We'd welcome your feedback on social media. This project on human rights reporting is supported by Fondation Hirondelle with the help of our donors. You can listen to our podcast via the Doh Athan Facebook page. They can also be found on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes and Spotify. You can also listen every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. and Sunday morning from 6 to 7 a.m. on Voice of America Radio. Please tune in again next week.